The Seraphim spun slowly through the dark emptiness between stars, its once bright lights flickering like dying candles. Inside the massive alien vessel, panic filled the air as thick as the toxic fumes leaking from damaged systems. Captain Deho gripped the worn armrest of his command chair aboard the Dauntless, a human destroyer that had seen better days. The ship's hull groaned as they pushed beyond recommended speeds, racing toward the distant signal. Old pipes rattled, and the deck vibrated beneath their boots. This wasn't one of the sleek new vessels the core worlds received. The Dauntless was frontier military, built to last rather than impress. "How far out are we?" Deho asked, watching the star map. Shift on his screen. 2 hours at current speed, replied Jinwoo, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. Maybe less if Yang Su can squeeze more power from the engines. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Yang Su wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the plasma flow regulators. The old fusion drive hummed with effort, components glowing red-hot as they ran beyond their design limits. His team worked around him, replacing coolant lines and rerouting power cables with practiced efficiency. "Sir, we're detecting quantum signatures," announced Science Officer Yunji from her station. 12 different species biomarkers. This isn't just any ship, it's carrying diplomats." Deho felt a chill run down his spine. A diplomatic vessel meant the galaxy's most important people were aboard, representatives from dozens of worlds. If they died out here, wars could start over the blame. Communications Officer Min-Ah adjusted her headset, filtering through the static. "I'm picking up fragments of their distress log, something about a cascade failure in their quantum drive. They've been drifting for 8 hours. 8 hours?" Deho stood abruptly. "In this sector. They'll be dead before any help arrives from the core systems." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady beep of sensors and the whisper of recycled air. Every human aboard knew what that meant. The nearest Allied fleet was 3 days away. Even the fastest ships from the alien worlds would take 2 days to reach them. The Seraphim would be a tomb by then. "Captain," Navigator Seung-min spoke quietly, "we're not equipped for this. They've got technology we don't understand." "What if we can't? We're the only chance they have," Deho interrupted, his voice firm but not harsh. "That's all that matters." He opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is your captain. We're responding to a distress call from an alien vessel. I won't lie to you, this won't be easy. They're using tech beyond our understanding, and we're just 48 humans against whatever broke one of their most advanced ships. But they're counting on us, and we don't leave people to die in space. Not on my watch." The crew responded with a mix of nervous laughter and determined nods. Seaman Bora, barely 19 and fresh from the academy, checked her toolkit for the 3rd time. Senior Chief Hyun-soo gathered his damage control team, men and women who could patch a hull breach in 0 gravity while under fire. As the Dauntless closed the distance, the Seraphim grew larger on their screens. It was beautiful and terrifying, a work of art made of crystalline structures and flowing metal that seemed to shift like liquid. Massive ring drives rotated slowly around the central hull, while smaller craft docked at graceful spires that jutted from its sides. "Look at the size of that thing," whispered Weapons Officer Dong-wook. "It's like a flying city." But the beauty was marred by disaster. Explosions had torn holes in the perfect hull, and entire sections had gone dark. Debris floated around the ship like a cloud of metal snow, pieces of hull plating and sophisticated equipment spinning lazily in the void. "Scanning shows massive internal damage," reported Yunji. "Their quantum drive appears to have imploded. The cascade is spreading through their primary systems." Deho nodded grimly. He'd studied reports of quantum cascade failures in the academy, theoretical scenarios where alien technology ate itself from the inside out. Human ships used older, more stable fusion drives specifically to avoid such disasters. "Sir," Jinwoo's voice carried tension, "I'm reading 17 different species aboard that ship, most I've never seen before. There's something else too. They're carrying what looks like a void construct." Deho's eyes widened. Void constructs were ancient artifacts, technology left behind by the precursors millions of years ago. Any active construct was worth more than entire star systems. If pirates learned it was aboard the Seraphim, "Keep that information classified," he ordered sharply. Not a word beyond this bridge. The Dauntless shuddered as Yang Su pushed. The engines passed their safety limits. In the engine room, warning lights flashed red while the fusion core ran dangerously hot, but they needed every second they could save. As they approached the crippled vessel, Dae-ho felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. 48 humans against an impossible situation, racing against time to save hundreds of alien lives. This was what they'd trained for, why they served on the frontier, not for glory or advancement, but for moments like this. All stations. "Report ready, Captain," announced Jinwoo. Dae-ho straightened his uniform and gave the order that would change everything. "Launch rescue pods. Prepare to dock, and may God help us all." The Dauntless moved forward into the darkness, its human crew ready to face whatever came next. Captain Dae-ho stared at the main screen as their communication array crackled to life. The image that appeared made his crew gasp, a towering being, with 4 arms and skin that shifted like liquid mercury, stood before what looked like a garden made of living metal. "Human vessel," Thala 9's voice came through the translator with mechanical precision. "While we acknowledge your quaint attempt at assistance, our quantum cascade failure requires technologies far beyond your current understanding. Perhaps you could relay our coordinates to more advanced civilizations." The words stung, but Dae-ho kept his expression neutral. Around him, his bridge crew exchanged glances. Communications officer Mina muttered something under her breath. That sounded suspiciously like an old Korean curse. "Understood, Thala 9, but we're here now and you're running out of time. Can you give us a full damage report?" The alien's 4 hands moved in complex gestures over controls that looked more like musical instruments than ship systems. Behind her, other figures moved, some with too many legs, others floating without any visible means of support, one that appeared to be made entirely of crystalline structures. "Very well," Thala 9 sighed, a sound like wind through metal tubes. "Our primary quantum matrix has suffered a cascading failure. The exotic matter containment is degrading at 17% per hour. Life support systems are operating on backup power from 3 different sources, none compatible with each other. We estimate..." She paused, consulting a display that shifted and flowed like mercury. 4 hours until total system collapse. "Another," voice interrupted, this one deeper like the rumble of distant thunder. Phil's being that looked like a walking tree made of copper stepped into view. "This is Admiral Kestar of the Dendrite Coalition. Human Captain, while we appreciate your courage, our technology operates on principles your species hasn't yet discovered. We require quantum-scale repairs, not mechanical adjustments." Dae-ho smiled grimly. "Admiral, in my experience, most problems come down to keeping things working and people alive. We might not understand your quantum whatever, but we know how to fix stuff that's broken." He turned to his crew. "Jinwoo, bring us in close. I want docking clamps engaged within 20 minutes. Mina, patch me through to the ship." Static filled. The channel as over 200 beings aboard the Seraphim listened. Dae-ho's voice carried clearly. "My name is Captain Dae-ho of the human vessel, Dauntless. We're not the newest ships, we're not the fastest, and we definitely don't have your fancy technology. But we don't leave people to die in space. My crew has volunteered to board your vessel and help however we can. We ask only that you don't give up hope." The response was immediate. A dozen different voices speaking in various alien languages, their translators creating a cacophony of sound. Some expressed gratitude, others skepticism, and a few what could only be described as noble dismissal. Through the noise, one clear voice emerged. "Captain Dae-ho, this is Vexini of the Crystal Collective. We would welcome any assistance you can provide. Our people grow weaker with each passing hour." The Dauntless maneuvered carefully toward the massive alien ship. Where their vessel was all angles and armor plating, the Seraphim flowed like a creature of the deep sea. Finding a compatible docking port took precious minutes as their different technologies struggled to interface. "There," announced Navigator Seung-min, pointing at a section of the alien hull. "That looks like it might work." Chief Petty Officer Sunja was already suited up, her EVA gear covering her compact frame. Unlike the aliens' sleek environmental suits with their holographic displays and self-repair systems, Human gear was bulky, pragmatic, and built to last. Her toolkit contained items that would have been familiar to mechanics from centuries past: wrenches, multimeters, electrical tape, and a healthy supply of what spacers called universal fix-it, a substance that could seal, stick, or strengthen almost anything. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang that reverberated through both ships. Soonja's team of 6 engineers checked their equipment one final time. Seaman Jae-hoon carried a portable fusion cutter, its power source small enough to fit in a backpack, but capable of cutting through most materials. Specialist Yoon-suk hefted a case of adapted Earth electronics, simple, robust systems that could interface with almost any power source. "Remember," Soonja addressed her team, "we're representing humanity here. Act professional, be respectful, and try not to break anything that's already working." The airlock cycled with a hiss of equalizing pressure. As it opened, Soonja stepped into a corridor that defied human understanding. The walls seemed to breathe, surfaces rippling with patterns of light. Gravity felt strange here, lighter in some areas, heavier in others, as if the ship itself decided where weight should exist. Waiting for them was a delegation of aliens that looked like they'd stepped from humanity's wildest dreams. Thalat 9 towered over them, her forearms ending in hands that had too many joints. The copper tree being, Admiral Kestar, groaned softly as his bark-like surface flickered with bioluminescent symbols. A creature that looked like a walking jellyfish floated nearby, its translucent body pulsing with internal light. Humans, Thala 9's translator worked overtime to convey not just words but tone. "We must warn you, this section of the ship is experiencing severe instabilities. Our quantum fields are fluctuating beyond safe parameters." Soonja nodded, pulling out what looked like an ancient handheld scanner. The aliens watched in fascination as she waved the simple device around, taking readings. "Interesting," she murmured. "So your ship's power signature is all over the place. No wonder your systems are failing." She looked up at the towering beings. "Can you show us the main engineering section?" Admiral Kestar's copper bark rustled. "Your primitive instruments cannot possibly comprehend quantum state engineering. Our systems operate on principles that require decades of study to understand." Soonja smiled, patting her toolkit. "Maybe not, but I bet I can find what's broken and figure out how to fix it." As they moved deeper into the ship, the human engineers saw technology that defied explanation. Corridors changed shape as they walked, responding to some unfathomable programming. Robot servants that looked like living metal sculptures tended to systems that resembled gardens more than machinery. Everything was art and function, combined into impossible beauty. But Soonja's trained eye saw beyond the aesthetics. She spotted the signs every engineer learned to recognize: heat stress on connections, fluctuating power readings, the telltale vibrations of systems running beyond their limits. There, she pointed to a junction where various exotic conduits met. "See how the quantum field generators are oscillating out of phase? Your whole ship is fighting itself." The aliens stared at her scanner readings in amazement. Simple principles were revealing complex problems their advanced diagnostic systems had missed. The human approach of looking at basics first was already showing results. As they reached the main engineering deck, Soonja had to stop and stare. The heart of the Seraphim was a chamber the size of a football field, filled with structures that seemed to bend space itself. Quantum drives hummed with barely contained energies, while holographic displays showed cascading failures spreading like infection through the ship's systems. But Soonja smiled, checking her toolkit one more time. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to both her team and the watching aliens, "it looks like we've got work to do." The first human-alien engineering collaboration was about to begin with nothing more than determination, ingenuity, and a good supply of electrical tape to save hundreds of lives in the cold darkness of space. The engineering deck of the Seraphim hummed with chaotic energy as Seaman Bora crouched beside a quantum matrix that looked like a massive jewel suspended in midair. The 20-year-old human studied the floating construct, while alien technicians pressed closer, their various forms creating an exotic crowd around her. "This is impossible," muttered Quentix, a six-limbed creature whose skin rippled with mathematical equations. The quantum field patterns require— Wait, Bo-Ra interrupted, pointing at her handheld scanner. Its simple display showed something the alien's sophisticated holographic diagnostics had missed. Look at this feedback pattern. Your quantum regulators aren't broken. They're stuck in a loop trying to fix something that can't be fixed the way they're programmed to do it. Senior Chief Hyun Soo crawled out from under a nearby conduit, his uniform stained with various colors of alien lubricants. What are you thinking, Bo-Ra? The young woman's eyes lit up with understanding. It's like trying to start an engine that's already running. The system keeps checking if the quantum fields are stable, finds they're not, tries to stabilize them, which destabilizes them more, so it checks again. Classic feedback loop. Around them, the alien engineers exchanged looks of disbelief. Thala 9's forearms gestured frantically. You cannot simply bypass quantum field regulators. The exotic matter containment would work fine, Bo-Ra finished, already moving toward a maintenance panel. If we give it something else to regulate instead. She popped open the panel with a simple manual tool, revealing circuits that looked like frozen lightning. Without hesitation, she began tracing connections with her fingers, a technique no alien had ever seen used on quantum technology. This is madness, whispered Kestar, his copper bark glowing with nervous energy. One mistake and the quantum cascade could spread exponentially. Bo-Ra looked up at the towering plant being. Then I'll just have to not make any mistakes, Soonjar's voice crackled over the comm. Bo-Ra, I need you to buy us time. Dae Young's team is working on the main power coupling, but they need the quantum flux to stabilize first. Copy that, Chief. Bo-Ra's small hands moved with surprising confidence as she began installing a device that looked primitive compared to the alien technology, a simple resistor array that her team had fabricated aboard, the Dauntless. The aliens watched in horrified fascination as she literally bridged their quantum systems with what amounted to enhanced electrical components. Meanwhile, across the engineering deck, Engineer Dae Young was having his own revelation. The alien power systems were elegant and efficient, but they had a fatal flaw: no redundancy. If one component failed, the entire system collapsed like a house of cards. You see, he explained to Veluth, a creature that looked like living water, human ships use triple redundancy. If one system fails, two others take over. You've made everything so perfect that you forgot to plan for imperfection. Working. Alongside him, a spider-like alien named Zak T observed as Dae Young spliced simple copper wires into conduits carrying exotic matter. This should not work, Zak T said, his translator struggling with his rapid clicks and churs. Copper is too crude for quantum applications. Watch and learn, Dae Young grinned, powering up the bypass. Immediately, systems that had been dark for hours began to flicker back to life. The humans worked with tools that would have been familiar to mechanics from centuries past, but they applied them to technology beyond current understanding. They didn't need to understand the quantum mechanics if they could understand the basic principles. Power needs to flow, connections need to be complete, and backups save lives. Specialist Jae-hoon emerged from a crawl space, his coveralls torn, but his smile triumphant. The plasma manifolds are back online. Turns out they just needed someone to physically reconnect the emergency couplings. An insectoid alien engineer named Hive Node clicked disapprovingly. Those couplings are automatic. They should have engaged when the failure began. Should have. Yes, Jae-hoon agreed, wiping grease from his hands. But sometimes you need to give technology a nudge. As each system came back online, the aliens began to understand something profound. Human engineering wasn't just about knowledge. It was about instinct, improvisation, and the willingness to try solutions that weren't in any manual. Bo-Ra's voice cut through the chatter. Quantum regulators are bypassed. The feedback loop is broken. The massive jewel-like quantum matrix began to pulse with steady light instead of the chaotic flashing that had threatened to tear the ship apart. Around the engineering deck, systems hummed back to life. Impossible, breathed Quentix, studying the readings. Your crude analog bridge shouldn't have worked. The quantum fields should have rejected it immediately. But they didn't, Bo-Ra pointed out cheerfully. Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects to work. Sunja's team had spread throughout the ship, each finding their own ways to solve problems that alien engineers deemed unsolvable. They used their tools like extensions of their hands, working by feel as much as by knowledge. Engineer Hyan Wu had figured out how to restart the life support systems by literally turning them off and on again, something the aliens had never considered because their technology was designed to run continuously. Petty Officer So-mi had repaired a navigation array by replacing failed quantum processors with analog computers that could perform the same calculations, just more slowly. The aliens marveled at how she'd managed to interface such different technologies. Throughout the ship, humans crawled through spaces too small for most alien species, working in conditions that ranged from scorching heat to freezing cold. They adapted to different gravities, altered atmospheres and lighting that ranged from blinding to nearly invisible. "Your people are remarkable," admitted Admiral Kestar, his bark now glowing with something like admiration. "You take what seems impossible and simply do it anyway." Dae Young looked up from where he was teaching a group of alien engineers to splice fiber-optic cables. "That's humanity for you. We don't know enough to know what's impossible." As the Seraphim slowly came back to life, the alien crew began to see humans in a new light. These weren't primitive beings fumbling with advanced technology. They were innovators who approached problems from angles no one had considered. The ship's lights brightened, artificial gravity stabilized, and most importantly, the quantum cascade that had threatened to destroy everything was finally contained. Bora sat back on her heels, exhausted but triumphant. Around her, alien engineers stared at her simple bypass solution, which continued to function perfectly despite violating every principle they'd been taught. "How did you know it would work?" asked Thala 9, genuine curiosity replacing her earlier condescension. Bora shrugged, her youth showing in the gesture. "I didn't. But somebody had to try something, and we're good at figuring things out as we go." The humans had done more than save the Seraphim. They'd shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. Sometimes the best technology isn't the most advanced. Sometimes the best solution comes from people willing to get their hands dirty and try the impossible. As Sunja's team prepared to move on to the next crisis, word was already spreading throughout the ship. The humans hadn't just fixed their technology. They'd given them a new way of thinking about problems. The real test, however, was still to come. The tranquil darkness of space erupted in brilliant flashes as 5 vessels dropped out of hyperspace. Their hulls were patchwork affairs, sleek alien technology welded to crude modifications, forming deadly hybrids that screamed pirate to anyone who saw them. Captain Daeho's blood ran cold as the tactical display updated. The Seraphim hung, helpless between them and the pirates, its beautiful form now resembling a wounded bird. Aboard the alien vessel, various species watched in horror as death approached. "Captain Daeho," Thala 9's voice crackled through the comm, her usual composure cracking. "Our weapons are completely offline. We're defenseless." The lead pirate ship, a bastardized fusion of 3 different technologies, broadcast on an open channel. The voice that emerged was harsh and mechanical. "Surrender now and we'll make it quick. Resist and we'll take what we want slowly." In the dauntless bridge, silence fell like a heavy blanket. Helmsman Wu Jin swallowed hard, his hands steady on the controls despite the tremor in his voice. 5 ships, Captain. All of them outgun us individually." Daeho studied the display, his mind racing through possibilities that all seemed to end the same way. The pirates had modern shields, advanced weapons and superior numbers. The Dauntless had determination. "Engineering," he called. "What's our status?" Yang Su's voice came back strained but steady. "Engines at maximum, weapons online, but sir, our shields are only at 60%. We took damage getting to the Seraphim." "Understood." Daeho looked at his crew, these men and women who had volunteered for frontier duty, knowing they might face exactly this situation. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." Alarms wailed throughout the ship as crew members rushed to their positions. In the torpedo room, Chief Gunner's mate Kyung-ho checked their inventory. 8 conventional torpedoes, 2 experimental quantum warheads, and whatever else they could improvise. Navigator Seung-min pulled up stellar cartography, searching for any advantage. Captain, there's an asteroid field 30 kilometers off our starboard bow. Dense metal content, lots of interference. Deho smiled grimly. Perfect. Plot us a course right through the middle of it. Weapons Officer Dongwook's hands danced over his console. Sir, the pirates are moving to surround us. They're not even trying to be clever about it. Why should they? Replied Deho. They see a primitive human destroyer against 5 modern warships. They think this will be easy. The comm crackled as the pirates broadcast again. A different voice this time, amused and cruel. Human vessel, you have 30 seconds to cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with the total destruction of your ship. Deho keyed the response. Pirate vessels, this is Captain Deho of the Dauntless. Let me save you some time. We don't surrender. Weapon discharges lit up the void as the pirates opened fire. The Dauntless rolled hard to port, her old but well-maintained engines pushing her toward the asteroid field. Energy beams seared past the hull, leaving glowing scars on their armor. Incoming torpedoes, shouted sensor operator Minsu. Multiple contacts. The ship shuddered as point defense guns engaged, throwing up a wall of metal projectiles to intercept the incoming weapons. Most were destroyed, but 2 got through, exploding against their shields in brilliant flowers of fire. Inside the Seraphim, hundreds of aliens watched in amazement as the tiny human ship charged toward impossible odds. Vexini of the Crystal Collective pressed against a viewport, her crystalline form refracting the battle's light into rainbow patterns. They're insane, whispered Admiral Kestar, his copper bark flickering with distress patterns. No, replied Sunja, who had stayed behind to monitor repairs. They're human. The Dauntless plunged into the asteroid field like a fish diving into coral reefs. Massive rocks spun lazily through space, some as large as cities, others small enough to skip off their hull. The ship's pilot, Wu Jin, had grown up playing in asteroid fields, learning to fly between the rocks like a 3-dimensional maze. Stay with us if you can, he called to the pursuing pirates, throwing the ship into a spiraling dive between 2 tumbling asteroids. The lead pirate ship, overconfident in its superior technology, followed closely. Too closely. It clipped a Udar, smaller asteroid, sending both ship and rock spinning. The vessel corrected, but now they were chasing the Dauntless one at a time through the dangerous field. Dongwook, ordered Deho, put a torpedo into that rock cluster ahead. The weapons officer smiled, understanding the plan. A torpedo streaked out, detonating against a large asteroid and fragmenting it into a cloud of deadly debris. The Dauntless shot through moments before the explosion, while the pursuing pirate ship found itself flying into a wall of stone fragments. Shields flared and hull plates buckled as the pirate vessel took dozens of impacts. It fell behind, damage reports flooding its bridge, but there were still 4 more pirates and they were learning. The remaining vessels spread out, using their superior speed to get around the asteroids rather than through them. In the engine room, Yang Su performed miracles, pushing the old fusion drive beyond all reasonable limits. Captain, I can give Hugh one more burst, but after that we'll be running on hope and alcohol fumes. Deho nodded. Save it for when we need it most. The battle became a deadly dance. The Dauntless would dart between asteroids, emerge long enough to fire, then dive back into cover. Sometimes they'd skim so close to a rock that the pirates couldn't get a clear shot. Other times, they'd use the asteroid's gravity to slingshot into unexpected directions. Seaman Tae Young, fresh out of the academy, manned the electronic warfare station. Sir, I'm detecting a quantum signature from one of the pirate ships. They're charging some kind of super weapon. Of course they are, muttered Deho. Can you jam it? Maybe. Tae-young's fingers flew over his console. I'm trying to flood their quantum field generators with interference. The battle reached its climax as the pirates finally coordinated their attack. All 4 remaining ships converged on the Dauntless from different angles, their combined firepower turning space into a web of deadly energy. This is it, announced Deho calmly. All power to forward shields. Yang Su, give me everything you've got. The Dauntless shot forward. Like a bullet, her overtaxed engines screaming in protest. The ship shook as energy beams hammered their shields, systems overloading throughout the vessel. In that moment of desperation, Dongwook had an inspiration. "Captain, I can link our torpedo targeting with the asteroid tracking system. If we time it right, do it," ordered Daeho without hesitation. 4 torpedoes launched simultaneously, not at the pirate ships, but at strategic points among the asteroids. The explosions were perfectly timed, turning the gravitational field into chaos. Asteroids began colliding, changing course, creating a domino effect of destruction. The pirate ships found themselves flying into a cosmic billiard game, where every move could send a rock the size of a mountain hurtling toward them, their superior. Technology meant nothing when facing pure physics. One pirate ship tried to retreat, backing into what it thought was empty space, only to have a spinning asteroid take off its starboard wing. Another fired wildly, its beams setting off a chain reaction of explosions that caught them in their own blast. When the dust settled, 4 of the 5 pirate ships were either destroyed or heavily damaged. The 5th, the original leader, hung, motionless in space, its systems overloaded from trying to navigate the chaotic battlefield. Captain Daeho opened a channel to the remaining pirate. "This is your only warning. Leave, now." The pirate ship's engines flared to life and it limped away into hyperspace, carrying word of the human vessel that had turned an asteroid field into a weapon. Aboard the Seraphim, the alien passengers stood in stunned silence. They had witnessed something unprecedented, an inferior force defeating superior odds through nothing but courage, cleverness, and an absolute refusal to give up. "Remarkable," breathed Thala 9. "Simply remarkable." Captain Daeho allowed himself a small smile as the Dauntless emerged from the asteroid field, battered but victorious. "Stand down from battle stations. Resume rescue operations." The humans had done more than save lives. They had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to fight against impossible odds. The massive space station, Unity's heart, hung like a jeweled spider in the void, its 1,000 docking bays welcoming vessels from across the galaxy. As the Dauntless and Seraphim approached their assigned berths, word of the battle had already spread through subspace communications. Captain Daeho watched through his viewport as ships he'd only seen in textbooks maneuvered around them. Vessels, of crystal that bent light, organic ships that pulsed like living hearts, and mechanical constructs that moved with impossible grace. Despite their miraculous rescue, the human destroyer looked small and primitive among these marvels. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Minna, "we're receiving over 300 communication requests. News media, government officials, even someone claiming to be from the Galactic Historical Archive." Daeho rubbed his tired eyes. "Tell them we need time to secure our ship first. Humanity before media." The docking process took hours, as both ships required extensive repairs. Human engineering teams worked alongside alien specialists, the 2 groups now consulting each other as equals. It was a sight that made seasoned diplomats take notice. As Daeho stepped off his ship, he was greeted by a delegation that included beings from species he couldn't even identify. Ambassador Telkar of the Zephyrian Collective stood at the front, her 6 limbs gesturing in what he'd learned was their form of respectful greeting. "Captain Daeho," her voice carried harmonic overtones that needed no translation to convey respect, "you and your crew have given us a gift we cannot repay. Our lives, and perhaps more importantly, our pride." Admiral Kestar's copper bark gleamed under the station's lights. "When we first saw your primitive destroyer, we thought it a cruel joke. Now we understand we were seeing something else entirely, the heart of a species." The press conference that followed would be played across the galaxy for centuries. Daeho stood at a podium that adjusted its size automatically for humans, facing an audience of beings that represented hundreds of worlds. A floating sphere of light that spoke in colors asked the first question. "Captain, your species was unknown to most of us before today. How do you explain your actions?" Daeho thought carefully before responding. "We don't abandon people in need. It's that simple. Whether they're human or not doesn't matter. We've seen too many wars start from people looking the other way." Thala 9, now an unexpected advocate for humanity, added her voice to the mix. "These humans didn't just save our lives. They showed us how fear can make us forget to be bold. Their primitive technology succeeded where our advanced systems failed Because they approached problems we'd given up on. The questions continued. For hours. How had humans learned to fight so creatively? Why did they risk everything for strangers? What did humanity want from the galactic community? To the last question, Daiho smiled. We want what everyone wants, to live in peace, to trade with our neighbors, to learn from each other. We're not asking for special treatment. We just want a chance to prove we belong. In the days that followed, Unity's heart became a different place. Human crew members couldn't walk the corridors without being stopped by aliens wanting to learn about Earth's history, its culture, its approach to problem-solving. Sunja gave impromptu engineering lectures to fascinated quantum theorists. Bora demonstrated her intuitive repair methods to beings with brains the size of rooms. The Peace Summit itself was transformed. What had originally been a negotiation between established powers became something larger, a discussion about what it meant to be part of a galactic civilization. Earth's representative, who had been included almost as an afterthought, now sat at the main table. Ambassador Chen Wei, a seasoned diplomat who had spent years preparing for this moment, found herself in the unusual position of having to turn down offers rather than beg for consideration. Worlds that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence now offered trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and joint research programs. It seems, she confided to Captain Daiho during a quiet moment, that saving lives is better diplomacy than any treaty I could negotiate. The ceremony honoring the Dauntless crew took place in the station's Great Assembly, a chamber that could hold representatives from every species in the galactic community. As each crew member received recognition from dozens of worlds, the significance of what had happened became clear. They weren't just being honored for bravery. They were being celebrated for changing how the galaxy thought about what mattered in a crisis. Seaman Bora, still young enough to be starstruck by the alien dignitaries, stepped forward to receive a crystal of recognition from the collective. The ancient artifact, said to contain the compressed wisdom of entire civilizations, glowed in response to her touch. I don't understand advanced physics, she said simply, but I know when something's broken, you find a way to fix it. In the dauntless wardroom that evening, the human crew finally had a moment to themselves. The small space was crowded with everyone from the captain to the newest ensign, sharing a meal of actual Earth food, a gift from the station's commissary staff who had somehow acquired rice, vegetables, and even real meat. Captain Daiho raised his glass of something that smelled strongly of home. To the crew of the Seraphim, who taught us that courage comes in many forms. To the engineers who said, impossible, and did it anyway, added Chief Yang Su, his weathered face creased with pride. Communications Officer Mina stood next, to proving that the language of helping others needs no translation. They drank, and in that moment they felt the weight of what they'd accomplished. They had saved lives, yes, but they'd done something more. They'd shown a galaxy full of advanced civilizations that sometimes the oldest solutions were the strongest. News of the rescue spread across human space like wildfire. Earth's children had been accepted not as junior partners begging for recognition, but as equals who had earned their place through action. The frontier crews, long forgotten by the core worlds, suddenly found themselves heroes. Captain Daiho returned to his quarters late that night, exhausted but satisfied. On his desk lay dozens of communications from Earth, congratulations from the President, promotion offers from the Admiralty, interview requests from every major news network, but the message that mattered most was a short note from Lieutenant Commander Jin Woo. Captain, the crew requests permission to continue patrol duties. We have a galaxy to protect. Months later, as the Dauntless resumed her patrol of the frontier, they carried more than just their usual supplies. They bore the hopes of a species and the recognition that courage, ingenuity, and simple decency could bridge any gap between civilizations. The galaxy had learned something important. You didn't need the most advanced technology to be valuable. You didn't need centuries of development to contribute. Sometimes all you needed was the willingness to help when help was needed most. And somewhere in the vast expanses of space, other human crews heard the stories and smiled. They knew what their species was capable of. They just hadn't had the chance to show the galaxy yet. The end.